About 10 years ago, on Christmas Eve in North Little Rock, Arkansas, a pastor by the name of Major Philip Wise, a pastor with the Salvation Army, was actually gunned down right in front of the Salvation Army. The motive was robbery. Pastor Wise, unfortunately, was murdered right in front of his 3 children that he adopted earlier that year to rescue them from an abusive family. It's a very, very sad story, a story that has marked that family for the last 10 years. And what I've found is it seems that the news tends to blend the most wonderful time of the year with the stories that are most tragic at this time of year. I was asked to share a little devotional on grieving at Christmas, because right in the middle of the Christmas story, and right along the angels and Mary and Joseph and the shepherds, you can find the story of grief. It's actually found in Matthew chapter 2. We find this grief story. Matthew writes the story of the Magi who are coming from the east, the astrologers who saw a star in the sky, and they made their trek to come and find the baby Jesus. And they made their way into Jerusalem, and they started asking the question, can you tell us where we can find the King of the Jews? And that we've seen the star and we have come to worship him. Herod the Great, the ruling king of the Jews, heard the news of this stirring, the King of the Jews, and he became very paranoid. He was an evil man, a merciless, cutthroat ruler who was not beyond killing his own family or his sons in order to advance his political career. Caesar Augustus once quipped that it was safer to be Herod's pig than Herod's son. When Herod realized that he was going to die, that there was not going to be any grieving in Jerusalem, he ordered that on the day of his death that there would be the leading citizens that would be killed, so at least there would be some tears that would be shed. Herod was intent on destroying and killing the King of the Jews, and because he couldn't just find one little boy, it'd be like finding a needle in a haystack. He went to this place and he says, we're going to kill every little boy under the age of 2. And one minute the little boys are there, and then the next moment they're gone. Experts estimate there were between 30 to 60 young boys that were killed that day. There was grieving at Christmas. You know, there's another type of grieving that I found in this story as well. Grieving that you and I can both relate to. It's the grieving of really what is normal. In the middle of this Christmas story, the plot to kill the baby Jesus, Joseph had to learn how to pivot. As you remember, he had a dream, and a man that was ordered to really be the earthly father of Jesus. He had a dream, and an angel came to him and says, get up now, grab your coat, grab Mary, grab the baby, and just head off to Egypt, because Herod is out to kill the baby Jesus. Joseph didn't roll back and go back to sleep. He woke up, got Mary, grabbed the baby, put some things in the knapsack, and he hit the trail for Egypt in the middle of the night. You know, and I was thinking about this story. I was thinking about that loss of the known for Joseph and Mary, and then going into the unknown. The loss of things that he loved, the things that were normal, the job he had, the friends, the community and his family. You know, friends, there's been a lot of grieving this year. We've had family members, we've had church members, we've had friends who have died by COVID, and we're carrying that grief into the Christmas Advent season. For many of us, there's an empty chair at the table. And this month, we will experience what they call our grief bombs, that this show up at unexpected times, and we have to process them. You know, not all of us have lost loved ones, but like Joseph, we've all experienced the grieving of what is normal. The COVID pivot has caused us to grieve. You think about the loss of celebrations that have been canceled. Loss of doing funerals live. And you think about we who are pastors who are called to be the comforting arms of Jesus and giving a look, a touch, and a word and giving comfort. We can't do that, and we can't do that by Zoom. We have grieved the loss of community in these Christmas events. We're grieving the loss of unity in our churches, the political clamor that's just come in, and people on both sides of the issues, and they're grieving this. Some of you are grieving the loss of momentum. You've had this thing going so well, and then suddenly it's gone. Part of the thing that I've been grieving is the loss of being able to serve communion to people, of breaking the bread and giving the cup and praying over them. Those are the most memorable moments of ministry. I'm grieving that. I mean, how do you get through grief? How do you get through it? You just get through it. We have to journey through grief. And I'm going to give you a couple thoughts. Number one, grief usually comes in waves of 20 to 30 minutes. The body can't sustain a little prolonged grieving, and so our bodies will give up. And so they have like 20 to 30 minute waves. And after my mom died last year, I realized that I was in grief waves and grief bombs that I thought would last forever. And I was getting despaired about that. I just realized, no, they're 20 to 30 minutes long. I remember and just asking in those grief moments, in those waves of grief, God of all comfort, come and comfort me. Number two, I think I've found that grief bombs, grief waves, whatever you want to call them, they don't know time and space. They just show up at different times, and memories just trigger them. Memories are stimulated by the senses, and the Christmas memories. You open up the pictures and family movies and maybe an ornament that was given to you. Or you might hear a familiar song of my mom playing the piano of a certain song and it takes me back. Maybe your dad's favorite cologne was Old Spice and you're at Macy's and you're checking out the cologne bar and suddenly you see Old Spice and it takes you right back. And what you do is have to take and say, that was then, this is now. Celebrate the smell, celebrate the memory, and then move on. Number three, I think you have to confine and assign a time to your feelings. Grief will show up at unexpected times. You might be in the middle of something very important. Leading worship, preaching, leading a small group, doing a job, and you just can't stop everything right there and experience your grief. You have to look at it and say, I'm going to come back and reflect on that. There's a book that is written by Jon Sterns. She has watched her husband, Steve, struggle with ALS, and she wrote a book called this, When the Holidays Hurt, Finding Hope Amid Pain and Loss. And here's what Bo writes. She says, Jesus didn't come to cheer us up. He came into the shadowlands we call home to set us free. He came to untangle us from the despair that wraps around our joy, our peace, and our purpose. Really, when we get hopeless, that's the very place where healing can come. And Matthew tucks this little story of grief right in the middle of the Christmas story, so that we who are grieving can find hope in darkness of the night. There is good news in the Christmas story. God sent his Son to be born in a world like this, a world where kings abuse power, where people are victimized and children are murdered, a world that suffers and parents weep for them, a world where Satan seems to have a foothold and seems to be winning, a world that is cynical, what people call the real world. Christmas happened in the real world. It happened in our world. And if we can see past the violence and the blood in this story, there is good news in the baby Jesus, that God entered this world, this corrupt, evil, unjust, double-serving, sin-loving, warmongering, baby-killing world. God entered this world, the real world, our world. And he is with us today. He is with us no matter what comes. He is with us when we laugh. He is with us when we cry. He is with us when we celebrate, and he is with us when we suffer. He is with us all the way to the end of the story, all the way to the end of your story. Friends, I really do pray for you this Christmas season. I pray that God would sustain you in your time of grief and loss. I pray for the Holy Spirit to fill you again, and the healing presence of Jesus, the sustaining presence of God would be with you. God bless you. Have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in the journey.